So if we start at the very beginning, one thing I love to call out is when you're joining a company and looking at revenue operations, one of my favorite first questions to ask is what is our bookings policy, if there is one. I think this is a great way if you are going, not to jump ahead, to look at something like a CPQ. Use of that software is going to be as strong as the policy that underlies it. And something like the numeric AI assistant can actually be used to draft both kind of initial first pass at a bookings policy as well as at your technical accounting policy. Really helpful to build the outline and the framework, and for you as a company to start thinking about how do we want to structure our deals? What sort of things do we want to require approval? How do we want to configure our data elements in our CRM so that we can downstream automate our billing and rev rec? It's also great for customer interface, especially if you think about your AR and collections. AI chatbots can take on a lot of the work of responding to initial customer disputes, can help your team really focus on tackling those critical strategic items in your collections process. And then on the back end, once the accounting data is booked or in the process of being booked, AI is great for strategic analysis and insights. Think, for example, like the AI Flux Writer in Numeric. I would mention also, not specifically listed on the slide, but AI transcription technology in a platform like Gong, for example, is extremely helpful for sales teams to glean insights from their customer calls and might even be useful in thinking through how to draft that initial quote based on what you may have agreed to on a call with a customer or with similar customers on prior calls. So AI can help with the accounting itself. It can also be an incredible analytic layer on top of your process to help your people focus on the areas where they are most needed. People can have different opinions or takes on this structure. But one example would be, at the front end, leveraging AI to help draft your policy, leveraging AI to help draft your quotes when you're going through your customer call and transcripts, but ultimately perhaps still using a CPQ arrangement to generate your contract, generate your quote and subscription, and generate the SKU level data in your CRM. Um, as you go through the accounting flow, you can have AI scaled in both on the customer facing side, say of billings and collections, as I mentioned earlier, um, but also on some of the accounting, like proposing cash matching as your cash comes in, maybe with a human level of review and approval on top of that. Um, on the back end, after journal entries have been posted, AI also can be really strong in your flux analysis to help catch exceptions and errors in the accounting that has already occurred. And similarly, the AI layer might also be useful, again, if you're using a CPQ setup for document review to find and action non-standard terms in your contracts, with the general idea of limiting the manual touch to where it's most critical, most needed, but also doing so in a way that will meet your audit needs in the future. So I think just having that forward-looking understanding of the cost trade-off where maybe you do save a little bit of money on software upfront by adopting a simpler approach. But by the time you hit scale and volume, just understanding that it may escalate your hiring requirements and may bring you into a massive data migration project, which on the back end is quite costly. It's just a useful way to frame it and really stop and think and understand what is the cost that I'm averting today, but what is the potential cost that I'm going to take on with a really difficult migration. I am a big fan of buying software today that will also suit your needs tomorrow, because these sorts of implementations can be really challenging. They can be risky to your financials, and they can put a lot of strain on accounting teams. So, not to say that every company has to do things the same way, but just being thoughtful about that transformation earlier can save a lot of pain later on. And in my experience, the flux analysis is a great way to catch exceptions that maybe occurred in an otherwise automated process. And again, this is an example of the AI layer where at the click of a button, Numeric can read through your transactions and explain the causes of the variance as well as the trend line, which can help the reviewer focus in on areas that maybe broke in the automation or edge cases which were not handled correctly. So again, like this is not generating the accounting itself, but it's a strategic layer on top of it to ensure accuracy and validity. And then pointing out to the real-time reconciliation, again, this is just another image of what that flux analysis looks like. To the extent that companies leverage AI to generate accounting early, there may not be the same control rigor in the environment that's going to contemplate how to get this over the line once we get to auditability. And so, not to say that it can't be done, but rather it's challenging once you get to that point to have to kind of scramble and figure out, okay, well, we've been relying on this AI-driven automation to create our accounting for quite some time. How do we prove it out? So I'm a big fan of being thoughtful around procedures, which kind of help there. And so, for example, you might still want to keep SKU level detailed bookings data in your CRM when you're close winning opportunities so that you can really compare real time to the output of an AI tool that's creating invoicing and rev rec for example, right? So you can still build in some of that completeness and accuracy work, but it's just, something that has to be a little bit thought out and it can be costly to try to scramble and implement it later. And so whichever approach people go with, just kind of having that thought in the back of your mind as to what it will take to grow with this process into the next chapter, I think is really helpful.